Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. And today I have Shad Ross with me. He's a streamer. His game has been together for a very long time, and I kind of like found you and stalked you from streaming Many Eyes. I saw some tweets with you in it. Mistakes Being Made is the stream on Twitch, and as always, links are in the description so you can check out Shad and everything he's got going on. The socials are there and the Twitch is there. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. We're dealing with thunderstorms, which is odd for our area. We're in Portland, so it's odd to have thunderstorms, but like the temperature changed dramatically over the past 24 hours. So we're doing
for the better or the worse?
For the better for me. I'm a true Oregonian. I like it in the 60s, and it was 94 yesterday. So yeah, I much prefer it the way it is now.
I cannot disagree. I hate the summer for the most part. And, I prefer the fall if I had to pick a season.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's like, it's the only season where you're not too hot, you're not too cold. Allergies aren't kicking your ass. It's like the perfect season. The whole world should just be locked in perpetual autumn. If you live in the right place, the trees are changing color. It's pretty.
Right.
You have Halloween, like the best holiday of all the holidays.
Yeah.
But then from there I'd probably go to winter because I'd rather be able to put clothes on, than the summertime where it's just sweltering. Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. Absolutely.
So, we were talking a little bit about your game and streaming Many Eyes. Where do you want to start?
Well, we can start with our game. So our gaming group has been together for 17 years. It's kind of crazy because the people that I see every week are the people that I've had the longest relationships in my life. I'm 40, so like pretty much everybody from high school has dropped off. But this group of gamers, I know everything about them, their whole entire lives since we've met, and it's pretty incredible. But yeah, so we play weekly. We've gone through several editions. We've played 3rd edition, 4th edition, Pathfinder. We're now playing 5th. I have a person in our gaming group that is effectively a Star Wars archivist. Like, he could tell you every single thing about every single thing. So we've played every version of Star Wars that's been out there too. Yeah.
So you guys play other things as well. Are you primarily streaming D&D though, or do you stream other things?
We only stream D&D, and the reason for that is I came up with the idea to stream this based on just conversations with a couple of people. Rudy and Satine were huge influences on that. And then when I was looking at things, we were playing Pathfinder at the time that I started planning this out. And Pathfinder is so crunchy with their numbers that I thought, oh, that's not going to stream well. That's going to get bogged down. And 5th edition is just so simple. And so that's really all we're streaming at the moment.
Relatively speaking, like it's probably one of the crunchiest games I play. I would say right now, it's not like no version of D&D has ever been rules light.
Right.
Is what I would say. Even like the OSR versions are not really rules light in comparison to some of the more like story-based systems out there.
Right.
But it is way more streamlined mechanically as far as 3rd edition or Pathfinder goes for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I as far as Stream of Many Eyes goes, that is an amazing story. So Joe Manganiello followed me last year, which was incredible. I had to hit my wife on the arm and be like, "Look at who's following me now," and she freaked out because she loves him from his movies, and so we just kind of corresponded back and forth. This was right about the time that he showed up. Well, just before the time that he showed up on Critical Role with Archon, and we just kind of bonded over Twitter. And at GaryCon this year, he was like, "Hey, has anybody from Wizards of the Coast contacted you?" And I'm like, "No, man. There's no reason that they would contact me." And like Chris Perkins followed me at the time, so I was like, I know him, but that's it, and there's no reason for him to contact me. And he was like, well, somebody's supposed to be contacting you to come down to this thing, and he wouldn't. He was really vague about everything, and like, okay, let's keep it real quiet. And so so eventually Nathan Stewart reached out to me, and he was like, hey, we want you to come down. We want you to do a build for a private game. And we're gonna bring you down. And the key thing was they paid for the shipping on the Dwarven Forge, because if I'm bringing Dwarven Forge, it's not light. It ended up being a lot of money. So I did a private game that Jeremy Crawford ran. Deborah Ann Wall was in the first one with a bunch of her friends, and then Matt Mercer and Travis Willingham were in the second game, and it was incredible. I got to sit in on both games, watch Jeremy Crawford run his game, which was incredible. Like, he is amazing. There's a reason why these guys are doing what they do, because they're just the best DMs. And in that weekend, I got to see Perkins, Crawford, and Merle's DM games all in the same weekend, which was incredible.
All I can think of, though, it's a little mean that you have to you have to show up with all your toys and set them up for them, and then you have to watch them play with your toys.
yeah, I can see that. But yeah, and so the big thing now, the thing that gets a lot of attention on our show, and that got a lot of attention at the stream, was we have a pirate ship that is converted from a Mega Bloks play set. And my friend Howard at MiniLead on Twitter converted it for me using, like, he painted it all to make it look realistic, and then he used the wooden stir sticks that you use for coffee. He trimmed those down and used them as plank decking. And to see professional streamers like Mercer, like all the Critical Role people that showed up, had a look at the ship, and they were like, that is phenomenal. So yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Bragging rights for sure.
Yeah, totally.
So the game that you're running, how long has the stream been going on? If someone wanted to jump in, how much catching up do they got to do?
Not that much. So we started in mid-February. I think February 16th was our first stream. We've done 14 episodes of the main story, and then there was a time, so we started on Wednesday nights, we switched it to Monday nights, and there was a time period where one of our players couldn't make it, so we did some sessions of him on his own. So I would say that there's less than 17 episodes total if you wanted to go back and do it. It's 2 hours long, so it's a pretty easy ride to catch back up if you're interested.
Nice. So I also saw you were tweeting some pictures from the set from Maze Arcana as well, right?
Yeah. So Rudy and Satine have been amazing. Satine was the first person of note to follow me on Twitter, and I totally reached out. Like, I would tag her in tweets and stuff and be like, hey, look at all this cool stuff I'm doing. Wouldn't you like me to do cool stuff for you, and that kind of stuff? And so when I'm
sure she gets plenty of those.
I'm sure she does. And so when I started talking about doing a stream, like, she was the first person I reached out to, and I was like, hey, what advice do you have? What about this, or what about that? And I met up with them at GaryCon as well this year, and they were like, hey, we're interested in maybe you coming and doing a build for us. It happened to be that the time that they were doing was the time that I was already going to be in LA. I just had to stay a couple extra days. So I was like, yeah, absolutely, we can make this work. And I think the Inkwell Society build that I did for their finale is probably my best Dwarven Forge build. It was a multi-layered casino. If you haven't checked out the episode, it's definitely worth a watch. It was 3 layers, and Rudy had designed this encounter with a elevator platform that had like a band and a dance floor that he was raising and lowering the whole time, and it was awesome. It was incredible. So yeah.
That is very cool. You know, Satine and Rudy are just really good people. They're awesome. I talk with them often, and they're just so like friendly and down to earth and just like regular people, but
and
like,
helpful.
Yes,
helpful. Like you ask them a question and they're like, "Yeah, here's the answer." Absolutely,
they're just good people.
Yeah.
So I saw the build. That actually was really cool, and the multi-layer part and the platform.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that was amazing. When we happened to be in LA, we got to see this set, and I guess it was near one of their finales as well, and they did the Breland throne room that some of their friends made for them.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the advantage of being in LA and having a bunch of like movie set people as your friends.
Exactly.
It came out in like 4 pieces, and it had the little bear heads that were mounted on the pillars. So it was like and it had all kinds of lights and stuff. There was like a whole like circuit board that went with it.
Yeah. Kai on their show, I was talking with him while I was down there, and like he's a visual effects artist, so he like does all practical effects and costume design and that kind of stuff. So the stuff that they could probably bring to the table if they had the time and the desire would be incredible.
Yeah, I mean they already do some cool stuff over there. So your game, how many sessions in? You said you started in February. Is it a weekly stream?
It is a weekly stream. We stream Mondays at 6:30. Satine and Rudy kind of chided me to why we're not starting at the top of the hour. So there may be some changes. We may switch to 7 o'clock, but yeah, we do a weekly stream. We just posted session 14 this Monday.
Is it bad to not do it at the top? I didn't even know that.
I don't know. I mean, we started at 6:30 because one of the people lives across town, and making it to our place by my place by 6 was a challenge for him. So. I was like, okay, how about 6:30? But apparently 6:30 is no good, and you need to start at 7.
7 or 6, right? That's
exactly.
Oh, yeah. I'll keep that in mind.
But while I was watching them, I got to sit in on Sirens and Inkwell Society while I was there, and the extent of their production and like what they're watching and all of that stuff is incredible. It's like I've never been on a TV set before, but I would assume that that's the same things that they're doing on a TV or movie set. To give you an example, Inkwell Society, they were watching the C-Team stream to see when it ended so that they wouldn't overlap with C-Team and they wouldn't lose any viewers at the top of their show with C-Team. And I was like, dude, I don't know how you guys do all this stuff, but it's incredible.
Yeah, I because we do the Saver Dice game, and I kind of feel like at a certain point, it's like you're overlapping with somebody, and you're just going to have to find the people that want to watch you, because other than Thursday, fuck Thursday, it doesn't even exist. Everybody's different on the calendar. So
Thursday was our normal gaming group night, and so when we switched, there were people griping about that, and they were like, I don't want to switch for somebody else. And I was like, dude, we are not switching for somebody else. We are switching because we're not going to get any viewers on Thursday nights. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's like you might as well not turn the camera on.
Yeah.
I mean, like some people can say they don't care or whatever, but to a certain extent, if you go through the trouble of setting up a camera and audio equipment for whatever reason, I can only assume you want people to actually watch.
Yeah, exactly. And not that we've expended a lot of money, but we have expended a decent amount on audio equipment and the cameras that we have, and so we we want at least a little bit in return for our investment.
So Mark has a question. You guys prefer physical maps or theater of the mind for your campaign? What are the pros and cons of both? Any way to balance? I suspect you guys like physical maps since Wizards of the Coast kind of brought you out and shipped all your Dwarvenite.
Well, so funny thing, I do like physical maps. I've always really liked physical maps. Like we started out with a guy who had secret nighttime access to a plotter. So some of our first games, we printed out maps from books or Dragon Magazine that were full-size 1-inch scale versions of the maps that were in the books. but we were playing 3.5 and 4th edition, and that was so tactical. So you really needed to know the movement. If people that watch my stream know, like, I'll build an elaborate map every week. If we don't use it, that's fine. It's fun for me to build the map. It's fun for me to post it online and see all the recognition for it. But last Monday's episode, it was a tournament, March Madness style tournament to determine the winner of a fighting contest. So I had this really tiny fighting ring that was like 8 inches by 8 inches that most of the action was in, but there was an elaborate tavern set up behind it that probably got shown like maybe 30% of the time. And it just I feel like it puts players in a mood when they see kind of a setup like that. They're like, this is game time. But I do theater of the mind all the time. If there's small encounters that I don't feel like need to have an elaborate map set up, we do theater of the mind too.
So DM Dom wants to know, with all the streams out there, what do you guys do that is different? I find it hard to find the time to plan for games and play games, as is much less watch streams. Just curious.
Okay, so yeah, D&D is basically my life at this point. Like, I have cut out most of the TV shows that I used to watch just to watch stream stuff. So as far as what we do that's different, I would say the terrain. I don't think anybody's doing terrain on a stream like we are. So if you're interested in that, if you're interested in cool Dwarven Forge setups, that is the reason to watch our show, because you'll definitely see something like that every single week. As far as how my game has been described, I was hanging out with a few people that I met on Twitter at the Stream of Many Eyes that watch our show, and they said, I like your game because it feels like a home game. It's not, we're not Matt Mercer, we're not Critical Role. I love Dice Camera Action, I love Inkwell Society, I love Critical Role, but I came to the conclusion that I could either try to be those things and fail miserably, or I could do my own thing, and that's kind of, I've hitched my wagon to the Dwarven Forge.
Look, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, even like the Nerdarchy games and the Saber Dice game, like, we just play our game, right? Like, I've kind of like been dragging my heels about taking a turn GMing with Saber Dice because, like, we have a great sponsor in Fantasy Grounds, and they've been a great partner for us. But and I've said it many times, the truth of the matter is we just play more theater of the mind than anything,
right?
And that, that that's my game. At some point I'll delve into Fantasy Grounds and start doing that. But even in our home games, when we use minis, and we use minis every session, but it's only during combat encounters. And like, it's on a flat grid with basically no terrain or anything. We might be like, oh, there's a thing here, or here's some pencils for the walls. Just to define an area. But like, we're really basic like that. My Scarlet Sisterhood game that we play Tuesday nights is the same way. We just do everything theater of the mind. So, and I guess the point I'm getting at is like that, if you're just playing your D&D game, you're doing it right. Like, that's how you should do it.
Right, exactly.
Otherwise, it's going to be kind of weird if you're trying to emulate Matt Mercer or C-Team or Acquisitions Inc. or any of the other ones, because like, you're just, it's probably not going to be as good, and I think it wouldn't come off as genuine. Right.
Yeah. I think really the only change that we have made for the stream is Chris Perkins is so great at ending episodes of his show, like either on a cliffhanger or on an awkward note or something like that. And I have tried to take that in and use that as an influence because, maybe it'll drive people to come back and see what happens next week.
That, and that's actually that's a great idea, and that is something that I like to do in my own games as well. And it's just a good story. It's just a good storytelling mechanism. It's not even a D&D thing. It's not a DM thing. Perkins didn't invent it. He just took it, from literature. It's a great idea. Doing any kind of episodic thing, if you can end on a high note or end on, on a cliffhanger, so people want to come back and see what happens next.
Yeah,
it's just a great idea. So, how many players you got in your game?
We fluctuate. Last session we had 3. We run as many as 5 these days. I had a much bigger gaming group, but kind of personal commitments got in the way. Like every one of us has had kids since we started playing, so that everybody runs through a period of time where it's like, I can't. I got a baby. And now it's me who has a baby, but we play at my house. So my wife just takes care of the kid during our sessions. But so right now it is 5 players, and it's so funny because like I've seen so much comments about diversity and that kind of stuff, and we're just 5 white dudes and a DM. Like it's just
shame on you guys.
White and straight, but unfortunately, that's just kind of the realist, the demographic of our group at this point.
I've been playing this game for a long time, and that's been kind of like, our group has been kind of the same. I mean, we've had, some ladies come in and out over the years. My buddy Mark just happens to be black and is in our group, but he's
right.
He's the only guy. I met him through my work, not through my work, through my wife, because he went to the same church as she did, and they were in choir together. And he was like, how come your husband never shows up for any of the events on Saturdays? She's like, he games every Saturday night. He'll never be here. So, and then he kind of like games because he hadn't gamed since college, and then she introduced us, and we have become great friends since then. He's, my daughter's godfather. I was his best man in his wedding. So, you game with your friends, and that's just like,
absolutely.
When you're putting together a D&D group, you're not like casting a show.
Right. Well, I mean, not everybody. Some people are definitely casting their show.
Well, yes, but that's because it is a show. But that's not that's a show that happens to be about a D&D game, as opposed to someone who is just gathering up their friends and playing D&D.
Right.
And it just it just depends where you live, what the demographics are.
Yeah, I will say, as soon as so I have a female friend that we met at Encounters, the first night of Encounters when they launched it for 4th edition. We met and instantly formed a connection, and she is my favorite gamer that I've ever ran a game for. So she has 2 kids right now. One's 6 and the other's like less than 2. So once they're old enough to be out on their own during game nights, she is definitely going to be rejoining our group.
Yeah, you're right. Kids just wreck your gaming life.
They do. I mean, how inconsiderate.
That was my takeaway from the last 10 minutes of what you had to say.
Exactly. Yeah. How inconsiderate.
Yeah. But hopefully, eventually, you're expanding the hobby by creating more gamers.
True.
We can only hope. That being said, though, one thing is I do think representation in the hobby matters as far as wanting to expand the hobby and grow it. And 2 is there's definitely a benefit to playing with other people that are different than you and have different points of view, maybe different backgrounds. Like my Sister Scarlet Hood game, I cast that game, because I've only really played with a bunch of dudes all my life.
Yeah.
Up until more recently where, Nicole had joined our group and Anthony of Cardboard Fortress. But before that, it had always been someone's significant other or spouse, or they wanted to see what they're doing, and they weren't really interested in the game. They just wanted to come and hang out with that person, and this is just happens to be what they're doing, or they wanted to see what was going on. So like I created Scarlet Sisterhood because I wanted a different D&D experience. So I reached out to ladies I've met in the community and said, hey, do you guys want to play D&D with me? And then I invited them to a game. And so, you know, we will play with anywhere from 2 to 5 players, and we play some D&D, and it's a lot of fun. I had a friend actually ask me, is like, how do you run your D&D different for an all-woman group? I'm like, I don't. They may react different than some of the other groups I've run for, but I run the exact same game I've always run. And then, you know, as a GM, I respond to whatever it is they do. Like when they build a bathhouse, or when they start saving money to build a bathhouse. And, you know, so it's, you know, it's a lot of fun. You know, gamers are gamers.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, that's all about listening to your players and responding to them, right? And I've had some women gamers who have done some crazy ass stuff that I would have never anticipated, because I'd had mostly experience with dudes. And
like you're surprised when they're like even more raunchy than when the guys you usually play with are like, whoa, I'm blushing here.
They're diabolical, man. Some of the plans that they came up with were just like, oh, this is amazing, but how do you do this?
Yeah. So, like I said, it's just cool to get out of your normal group and play with other people in general. You know, totally. Just like switching up. One of the things that's really helped Nerdarchy, you know, have a stronger group is the way we run. Like I run 1 game a month in our home group. Ted runs 1 game a month in our home group, and then we'll like bring someone else in. And so, like, there's some crossover, but a lot of times they're different groups, right? So it's just cool to have different people to interact with on a regular basis, as well as what this is the longest running game we've ever played. Where actually, that's a question I have for you next. Where we've taken characters from 1st level to like 16th and 18th level. You know, we've never done that before, and never had a campaign that has spanned years. Because like someone would get bored, people would go away, and we would stop the game, pick up the game, start a new game. You know, it's AD&D or ADD from AD&D. You know, so I guess that's a question. You've been with the same group for the long time. You know, what is the longest running campaign?
I think that our longest running game was 3 years. And you're right. It is super hard to maintain stuff. You know, somebody gets a good idea and everything gets put on hold. Some players, you know, if players that are integral to the story lose interest or have to drop out for whatever reason, that is it's easy to lose focus on that kind of stuff. But the game that we played the longest was the first adventure path that was in Dungeon Magazine that Paizo did, called The Shackled City. I think was the first game, first adventure of it, and we played that thing from beginning to end. I think we ended at like 18th level, and it took years to do it. But yeah, I was telling somebody Monday, I was like, yeah, I'm working on something else. We've got a secret project that we can't really talk about yet. And it's super hard to focus on 2 games at the same time for me to run as a DM. So like I'm plotting out what I want to do, and also trying to run Mistakes Being Made, our Dragon campaign, and doing both at the same time is difficult. It's so difficult.
Yeah, it can be. And the more games you play, like the harder it is to figure out what's going on in whatever game you're currently playing. We played Saber Dice last night, and for the life of me, I had no idea what happened this section before.
Yeah, luckily this is the only game that I'm actively working on, these 2. But if I was a player in a bunch of games, man, it would be difficult. Although I did reach out to some people, and I was like, hey, you can have me on your shows if you want to. It would be nice to be a player sometimes.
And is that your role forever, GM?
Yeah, for the most part, I am the dungeon master of our group. I do. So we have rotated in the past. When we were playing Pathfinder, we would rotate off of adventure paths. So like, you'd play for a couple of books of an adventure path. So like 2/3 or more of a story, and then the next DM would take over when I needed a break, that kind of stuff.
And you know, for the most part, you know, at some point, all GMs need a break, whether they know it or not.
Yeah, you get so burnt out. There's times where I'm just like getting to the table and I'm like, I do not care about this story anymore. I need to play as a player, and I'm always so as a DM. I like people that are bringing like some background to their character and that kind of stuff to play off of. But when I get to the table with my character sheet, I'm like, okay, I'm going to figure this out at the table. Like, I've got a broad concept of what my character is. My last character was an optimistic necromancer. And everything was going to turn out because, hey, if somebody died, they could still continue with the party. And that was pretty much it. And within the first couple of sessions, his backstory was written up on the fly.
We had a character die last night in the stream. I won't say who for people who haven't watched it yet. Yeah. And they did continue on as a ghost for the rest of the session anyway, so that the player on stream had something to do. They couldn't physically interact with anything, and they weren't a D&D ghost. They were just a apparition of themselves.
That's the worst. I had a friend in the Shackle City game. He showed up for a big fight with a caster, and he was this half ogre barbarian that just did tons and tons of damage. And first round of combat got put in a force cage, and no one had any way of getting him out of it, and the fight lasted the whole night. So he showed up for maybe 10 minutes of gameplay, and then he was sitting on the couch for the rest of the night.
That's D&D, man. That's what happens.
Yeah. That's some of the stuff that can happen.
Yeah. So the game that you're currently running, I take it you're doing quite a bit of prep if you're laying out, you know, Dwarven Forge and stuff like that. Do you ever feel like that locks you into what you're running and the adventure? Like you have this big setup in front of your players and like, this is what we're doing tonight.
Yeah. I guess that would be a better question for my players, because I am totally fine with them taking a left and going that other direction. And that's kind of been a common comment on some of my Twitter builds is yeah, that's great, but that, like, what if they decide to go the other way? And I'm like, that's fine, we can scrap it. I built an enormous temple in one of my games, and one of my players at the end of the night was like, we didn't even get to that. And I was like, yeah, you didn't go there, so I'm not going to force it.
What is sorry, I'm unfamiliar with your stream, so what is your methodology? Like, do you do like Matt Mercer does, where he like pulls out the stuff pre-made and like, or is it all just kind of like set up already?
Oh, it's on the table.
Yeah.
Like Friday nights is generally the nights that I set aside to build stuff. So Friday night after I get home from work and I'm kind of all settled, I'll start building out whatever I think is going to most likely happen for the next session, and then I'll take pictures of it and post it on social media the next day. But yeah, like if we don't get to it, it's not a problem for me. I don't know if having that there on the table is more of a motivating factor for some of the players, but I have, especially in this in the stream game, I have tried to do a lot of sandbox type stuff. So I try to get a good idea at the end of the session, after the stream is offline. Okay, what do you guys want to do next? Like, you have these 5 options. What do you guys want to focus on?
We've done that to Ted.
Yeah,
we've told him something, and then we show up and do something completely different.
Oh yeah, that totally can happen, and I don't begrudge them for that. But at some point, there is the okay, guys, I have prepared this. I haven't prepared that. So like, if it's something where I just can't possibly do whatever they wanted to do, then we'll roll with it as much as possible. But I'll try to get them back on the path to where I had planned. And one of the questions about the current game that my players have had is like, they haven't been given a NPC, a WoW style NPC with a exclamation point over their head that gives them the quest that they need to go do. And so they've gotten a little lost with like, okay, well, we're doing this and we're doing that, but like, what's the major thing that's happening? And I said, well, it's happened, but you guys have been out in the wilderness for 2 months. And so there's been no one to tell you about what's happened. So I haven't told you what's happened. I've hinted at it. And then when they got back to town 2 weeks ago, they got back to, we play in the inner sea. So they're playing pirates on the inner sea. And they got to Emmerich Hold, which is the pirate capital. And then they started hearing all sorts of stuff, like a dragon, red dragon came in and destroyed their island completely. There's these goblins that are sailing the sea, flying the banner of the dragon, that they're raiding places all over the place. And so now it's kind of apparent that, oh, this is the story that was going on while we were out in the middle of nowhere looking for something.
So there's a couple questions coming in. Mark Bird had actually 2 questions. I'll just put them together.
Okay.
And one is, how expensive is it to run Dwarven Forge fairly often? And then the other is, what has been your most satisfying in your experience playing or GMing?
Oh, okay. So there, as far as expenditure of Dwarven Forge, I will say get in on the Dwarven Forge Kickstarters, because I've backed them every single year. They're the best way to get the product. But that being said, I have probably, if I'm being honest with myself, spent probably $10,000 on Dwarven Forge. Do I need it all? Probably not. If I move my head, well, it's below. I've got like 7 or 8 resin sets that I've been contemplating selling just because I haven't been using them as much recently. But yeah, it's just my hobby, right? So like, I don't drink, I don't do drugs. I have a decent car, but this is what I spend my money on. So, but that being said, like, if you wanted to run a game on a weekly basis, you could probably make it work with a couple $1,000s with the Dwarven Forge. Because if you're just doing dungeons, some of the last set that just came out, the Dungeon of Doom, is beautiful. And then if you got in on some of the stuff that they sold for their Kickstarter 1 early on, that would be all you'd need. So, and what was the other question?
What do you find more satisfying, playing or GMing?
Oh, okay. So GMing is way more satisfying. I always wanted to be an author, but I could never finish an entire book. And I made this realization last Christmas when one of Satine's tweets was like, "What did you want to be when you were a kid?" And I made this realization that I basically fulfill my author and writing dreams every week when I DM, because I don't have to come up with everything. I just have to come up with a scenario or maybe a story that the players kind of fill out the rest of it. And that really is what I struggled with all along. So and I think there was a most satisfying moment question that came up. My most satisfying moment has nothing to do with terrain. I ran a skill challenge for a heist back in. We were playing Pathfinder, but I got the idea from a 4th edition skill challenge, and it was basically like, I'm not going to tell you what skills you can use. You can use anything you want to use, and just justify it and role play it out and all of that stuff. And it was one of the most satisfying times, because I don't know how much you tried to use skill challenges in 4th edition, but like the early skill challenges just didn't work, and it never really came off. But once I read a little bit more about it online, I was like, oh, this is how you do it. And when I pull it off, I was like, yeah, that's awesome.
It is a great concept that is hard to implement, but Matt Colville has a great video on using skill challenges. I would recommend it for anyone who wanted to use them, and I think it is a great thing to put in your game. And I've done like hybrid things in my own games where I used skill challenges or combined them with combat, which has been kind of fun.
Yeah. The other thing I will say, and this is the most satisfying moment I've ever had as a GM, is so I had a character, a player that was playing basically Judge Dredd. Like, he was a constable in a city, and he was lawful neutral, and it didn't matter if you were jaywalking or if you stole the royal diamonds. Like, he treated you exactly the same way. And he ran afoul of this this wizard, and they were nemesises, and somehow I was able to keep the wizard alive for a lot of it, and so I put it into a position, and I specifically, like, this was my plan. He was at this party, and I made it known that combat wasn't going to be allowed at this party, because the people hosting it didn't want there to be bloodshed. And then I put the wizard on the table, and I was like, and he's here too, and he is basically taunting you. And so the wizard started combat, but so it allowed him, the player, to kind of defend himself. And at the end of it, he ended up killing the wizard because he was like, no, he's too dangerous to be alive. So he killed him. And what I'd planned on, and I hadn't told him all along, was if he had died during combat, that was the final piece of the ritual he needed to become a lich, was to get killed by his nemesis. And so when the player got back to his bunk, he got a note from the wizard saying, thank you for helping me establish my goal of becoming a lich.
Oh, nice. DM Don wants to know if you use Fog of War.
I've thought about it a lot. I know that Stefan of Dwarven Forge uses Fog of War. With a lot of my stuff, as I've kind of built up minis and more elaborate dungeon dressing pieces, it just doesn't allow for it. Stuff gets knocked over, and there are pieces that if it got broken, I'd be really upset with myself. So when the players sit down at the table, they can see the entire map. And sometimes I don't put the minis out, so they see like the rooms and stuff, but they won't know what's in them until they open the doors. But they're generally pretty good about also not using player knowledge against me.
That is an art form in and of itself.
Yeah.
Separating game knowledge from player knowledge. So DM Don wants to know what's a good place to start with your stream. And yes, he does use Dwarven Forge.
So Don, the best place to start would be session 1. It's episodic, so, and we haven't really had a break in the story that's a good jumping on point yet. We're actually getting close to, probably in another 4 sessions, a breaking point for this story. And then once we come back and pick it up again, that'll be another good jumping point. But we've got 28 hours of content at this point, so you can probably skip the episodes with just one player, with 2 players. You could probably skip those and not miss out on a whole lot, but those are a lot of fun as well.
I'm not sure what my family's doing above me, but it sounds like they're trying to break down the house. Someone will be getting yelled at very shortly. James asked a question: if you were a mobile DM and had to take your dungeon to a place every week, would you still do it there? Or is there an alternate item or way you would do it?
So I have been in mobile DM. There was a time where when my wife and I were saving up for our house, we were living in a 1-bedroom apartment, and it was just tiny. And luckily at the time, my Dwarven Forge collection was pretty small. But so I would still take Dwarven Forge from place to place. And what I would do is I'd typically build it beforehand, take pictures of it, and then set it up there. And if I was entirely mobile, like if I had to travel and people and had to either ship my Dwarven Forge on my own dime or choose something else, I would choose Paizo flip maps because they're so beautiful. I use them a lot in Dwarven Forge builds anyway to kind of flesh out things because looking at Dwarven Forge random floor pieces or a beautiful map underneath just makes all the difference in the world. So I would take Paizo flip maps and maybe some dungeon tiles and use those instead.
There's also 2.0 and 2.5 dungeon tiles that there's a huge kind of like a YouTube community built around where they build them.
Yeah,
and
I had tons of dungeon tiles, and so Mike Shea, Sly Flourish, he was one of the first people I saw using maps or dungeon tiles in addition to Dwarven Forge, and I was like, that is a genius idea, and so I just incorporated it, and now he's completely theater of the mind. Like he has a Dwarven Forge that he doesn't use, and I just laugh at that. He's come so full circle.
So Roger says, I thought about setting up a gaming room in a shipping container on a trailer.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, as long as you can put air conditioning in it.
Yeah. I've talked to Wizards of the Coast and been like, hey, anytime you want me to come up, I'm only 3 hours away, but I would just load everything in my car and take it up and build it there.
Yeah. Well, and also that's like going to Wizards of the Coast, so it's like
exactly.
It's D&D Mecca, right?
Yeah, I would love to. I've never been invited to, but I would love to.
That would definitely be pretty cool. Yeah, even when we play and occasionally we set out some pieces, that it does happen over the past like 20 years or so. Occasionally, like set some nice pieces, and at this point too with Nerdarchy, people send us stuff, so
yeah.
It does make a huge difference.
It does. So the reason that I started posting stuff on social media is like 4 years ago for Halloween, I always did a big horror game for Halloween. And I was like, okay, well, what can I do to make this over the top? Like the finale of this horror game for October, I want to be completely over the top. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to change my light bulbs out in my chandelier over my dining table to blue light bulbs. So that's going to give it a nighttime aesthetic. And then I took the crock pot that we had and filled it with water and then threw in dry ice into it. And like, it just changed everything. And so each year after that, I tried to top what I did. And it just got to be so much that I was like, I should start posting this online. There's like the only memory of this otherwise is in my players in my mind. And that's kind of a waste, So that's how I got my start on Twitter, posting that kind of stuff.
No, definitely cool. And I'm sure that's why you have some of the people following you that you do, is because they're like, oh, cool pictures.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a pretty chick, so I'm not going to get people that way. So I got to do what I can to get the viewers that I can. And I mean, my niche, and as much. So when I was in the stream of Many Eyes, everybody had thought I worked for Dwarven Forge, and I'm like, no, dude, I'm just a guy,
just a dude that play the game.
I enjoy their stuff.
I spent too much money.
And then
it all finally paid off, though. You got a trip to Stream of Many Eyes. Like, see, listen, guys, all you have to do is spend like 10 grand on Dwarven Forge,
exactly,
and start posting stuff to Twitter.
And then you can get a trip to California that costs way less than the money that you spent on this stuff.
Yeah. And they called me crazy.
It all paid off.
I showed them. Well, you got to watch some D&D famous people play with your stuff.
Oh man, it was awesome. It was awesome. It was cool to see Matt Mercer playing a PC. That was awesome. Um, it was super fun to just watch people looking in awe and looking at this map. I also did so on Sirens, the Sirens finale. The night before, Satine was like, "Hey, can you make me a yawning portal? I want a yawning portal for my my finale." And I was like, I think I can. And that was more challenging than probably any of the other stuff that I did, because it was like absolutely last minute. And I was like, well, what the hell do I use for the portal itself? Because if you look at, there was a map that came out in 4th edition that it's a tactical map at the Yawning Portal. And that tower, the portal itself is enormous. It's like 8 inches across. And I was like, what can I possibly use? And then Chris from Action Shield was with me, and he was like, what about this? And he brought out like an acrylic pipe that he had for Rudy's build, and I was like, oh, that is genius. You should be making those.
Definitely cool. So yeah. It's funny. I was gonna have to sneeze, so I went and muted the stream. And as soon as I muted, the sneeze went away. Stream life. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I was gonna ask, was Stefan Pokorny actually at the stream of Many Eyes?
He wasn't at the stream. He and Nate were, I think they're buried in their latest Kickstarter. It comes out in July. But I did get a chance to meet him at GaryCon. And he's another guy that I was like, I don't understand how you know who I am. I kind of do at this point, but like when he reached out to me and he was like, I really like your stuff, or what you do with our stuff, I was like, thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Did you tell? If you just send me more of it, I'll do even more with it. You ain't seen nothing yet.
Well, my plan for going to GaryCon, it was mostly business this year, because I wanted to meet Satine and Rudy and talk with them about how to improve the stream, and I wanted to talk with Stefan about maybe just getting some advertisement from Dwarven Forge on social media and that kind of stuff, because that can really help.
I understand they gave you some great advice. Just pick up another like 10 to 20 grand worth of equipment.
Yeah, if you just buy 4 Black Magic cameras, your video is going to look awesome. And
yeah,
they're $1,500 a piece. So yeah, exactly. But Stefan, man, he is like the Mad Hatter. He is the craziest guy, and if you turn your back for a second, he's off doing something else, trying to schedule an appointment just to have like a 5-minute conversation with him. Took all weekend to try to like hunt him down, and then at the end of it, I was just like, whether or not you guys send me stuff, I'll leave that up to you. But if you guys could just maybe retweet my stuff and share my stuff on your website, then that would be great, so that I can get some eyes on the product, the stream that we're doing. And they've been amazing. They've done absolutely everything about that. And then when I came back from Stream of Many Eyes, I was like, hey, so I have some ideas if I get invited back to the next one, because it's going to be an annual thing, the stream.
Every time they launch a new product, they're going to do this big thing. Yeah,
exactly. So I was like, what do you guys think about maybe giving me some stuff to use there? And they were super receptive to it.
Yeah, it is kind of funny because they launched their latest Kickstarter at Origins, and they unveiled it during the during one of the D&D games.
Yeah,
and not to steal your thunder, but they probably could have just had them come out and do all that.
Oh,
stuff.
I know, right?
So it is kind of cool that you snuck in there. Like
that is all. I chalk that all up to Joe Manganiello, because they could have had Stefan out there. Absolutely. There's no reason that they couldn't. That set that Nate had for his game was amazing. I will say I watched that stream as well, and I will say the look on Chris Perkins' face during a portion of it, I was like, oh, he's really probably not enjoying this, especially when the blood came out. Nate squeezed that blood packet. I was like, he's not enjoying that at all.
Yeah, I actually didn't watch because like earlier in the day they were setting up and I was checking it out and I was watching and I was like, I can't hear anyone because all the audio was to the streaming,
okay.
but not to the people that are like standing around. Like
Right.
the only time I ever heard anything was when Adam did the like Q&A later on, and Adam's just kind of a loud, boisterous guy and really projects his voice. So I could actually be like, oh, I can actually like watch and listen to this. But, you know, when they were doing, like, the different panels and stuff, I was like, I'm just watching people talk. You know, I can't hear it. And I don't read lips, so.
It's worth a watch. That's the first time I'd seen Nate Taylor DM before, and he is super duper creative, like he wouldn't be anyway. Like, he's one of the leads on Dwarven Forge, but, like, some of the stuff that he did, like, mask changes for a bunch of different things, and I was just like, that's amazing.
I'm not sure. I think I have him on calendar to be a guest. I knew we were talking. I don't remember. Yeah. Once I do a thing, it's like gone on to the next thing. I'll know again when it reappears on my calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, that's cool. Like, and it is kind of cool to like to get out there and be like, I'm here on business, and like, well, where are you going? I'm like, to this damn thing.
Well, everybody at my work, like, I work with no gamers, so they don't really understand what I do. They're like, do you have to wear a wizard hat when you DM? And I'm like, well,
it's optional. It's optional.
You don't have to wear a wizard hat and cloak. I mean, I have one, but but yeah, then describing like what I was there to do. And like all of the ladies, when I was like, yeah, and Joe Manganiello, you know, I talked with him on Twitter, and I'm going to see him there, and then they're all interested, right? Because they're like, oh well, Joe, he's a hunky dude.
yeah, you finally you're talking their language.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. So just for future reference, guys, this will probably be the last question. Put question in front of the question. It makes it so much easier to pick them out. But Gattold. So asks, what comes first, making the campaign or checking what tile sets you have?
Well, so what I generally do when I sit down to plan out a session is I think about like just what the session is going to be. So like if I have a session in a tavern with maybe some sewer encounters or some, you know, like transporting to leads to a cave or something like that, like that is kind of the first thing I think about. And then plotting out like how to build what I want is always secondary. Now, that being said, I have so much Dwarven Forge that I can pretty much build. If you want to do something in a fantasy setting, I can build it for you with the most part. I mean, the primary limitation on how big I can go is the size of my table at this point.
How big is your table? Like, we play on a pool table.
We play at a dining room table with all the leaves in, and the playable area is about 4 feet long, and then it's standard dining room table width. And the problem that I've run into is players have complained about
no room for their stuff.
Where am I going to put my stuff? So I've been talking with Dan from Hammered Tables, and there is a plan in place to eventually have a Hammered gaming table at our house.
Oh, okay, cool. Guys over at Carolina Games are really cool as well.
Yeah.
So Ted has a standard pool table, and he built, he kind of built a top for it that goes over top of it, and that's what we play on. So it's 4x8.
That's cool.
It's it'd be great for what you do. For what we do, I hate it. Like, it is the worst. Because we just use one camera, and when we record games, it's a terrible shot.
Yeah.
And I was like, if we just had like a standard table, or even like when we've done like fold up tables, I was like, wow, this is such a better shot.
Yeah, that's the biggest challenge with us. So like we use I forget the brand, but they're just USB cameras. And
Logitech, maybe? Logitech's
Logitech.
Really
it
good.
is
They're they're inexpensive. They're good cameras. It's what I want right now.
They're good. Mike, my tech guy, was telling me that they're actually one of the highest rated for the value, and It's a challenge to get good camera angles. The one thing I will say, if you're interested in doing something similar, is we have a mini tripod that has a Logitech camera on it, that we can get really in tight for whatever we're currently in. So if there's a battle taking place, we use the table cam for that.
Yeah, we will probably, like, not with the games we have going on, because it doesn't seem to make sense to change in the middle.
Yeah.
And it's been forever since I've actually posted any of them. Someone just messaged me today, hey, are you guys still doing the Curse of Narcisus game that Ted's running? I'm like, yeah, we still run and record it. I just haven't put them up.
Yeah.
But, you know, we that's one of the things we've been talking about is you know, doing stuff like that, you know, using multiple cameras and OBS and things. And Ted's like, we could do like the whole like LARP stuff, like the trailer scenes that Critical Role does. I'm like, Ted, why would we do that? Our videos look like shit. People are gonna see that, and then they're gonna see the actual gameplay and be like, what is this? So why did you guys bother? So yeah, we're looking at, like, in the future for in-person stream games, what we can do with those. And it's tough too, because we only put them up, like, even when we were regularly doing it, they were going up once a month, and it's surprising how many people will still tune into for them, and they're really crappily shot, and the sound's not the best.
Do you feel like it's a challenge to keep a monthly game going? I've always found that it's difficult to keep it going.
You know what? I think it would be, but the chat is funny. It would be normally, because if you're not consistent, people will stop.
Mm-hmm.
But I think because we are a little bit higher profile,
yeah,
it even feels weird to say that. But because of that, it is easier for us. And people are, like, just glad to be in our games. So that just feels really odd to say. But
oh, dude, trust me. When you guys reached out to do an interview, I'm like, why? What am I going to talk about? I mean, I can talk about Dungeons and Dragons to you for all day if you want to talk about it all day. But I'm just a guy that works for an insurance company. Like, yeah. I enjoy what I do in my pastime, but I'm nobody.
Well, you know, everybody's somebody, and
yeah.
and like, just like, you're like, oh wow, I'm doing this thing, I'm just like a guy, and that's how we feel a lot of times. It's just, we just happen to be guys that run our mouths a lot. So, like, to even talk, like, we, you know, usually if we talk about being celebrities, we kind of, like, it's, for me anyway, it's always tongue in cheek. Otherwise, I just feel like a douchebag.
Yeah.
And it's just like, just a dude. I like to roll funny shaped dice, and I'm kind of loud and obnoxious sometimes.
So have you guys made this your full-time gig, or are you doing something else on the side?
I am doing it full-time now. We are, the goal, so the overarching goal is to get the other guys full-time, and we want to hire other people to do work for us, and you know, create a nerdy place to work. You know, that's the end goal.
That would be super cool.
Yeah, I mean, we're a ways away from that. Like, the dream is gaming cafe / studio space / you know, office HQ.
Yeah. Yeah, so, if you could do a studio space that services the community, I've heard that's huge. Like, podcasting and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's kind of like what I was looking at. And we're on the East Coast. There's freaking nothing. You have to go to, I mean, for the niche anyway, you have to go to the West Coast, and more specifically, pretty much LA to do it.
Yeah.
So I would love to figure something out over here, you know, on the East Coast, and you know, it is eventually about, you know, how many people can we bring with us, and can we create jobs, you know, in the community, you know, doing this stuff, and that is like the big picture.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe by year 10 we'll be there. You know, right now we're in year 5, and we've managed to get one of us making a very meager income. So.
Well, my goal with the stream, like, I never planned on, like, oh, we're gonna make enough money that we can all retire or anything like that. But just having had a baby, my baby was born in October. I would love it if we made enough money that I could have my wife stay at home. That would be great. So
Twitch is a different animal, right? For Twitch, you have to be streaming a lot. Like, one game a week ain't gonna do it.
Nope.
I don't even think. Can you even become an affiliate for that? Like,
No, you have to do 7 streams, unique streams a month,
Yeah.
which hit right away. And then because we were testing stuff out and making sure the stream worked, so we hit it like almost immediately. And then we haven't been able to do that enough to really make it last. So we're not getting paid right now, but that may change in the future.
Yeah. Oh, and to address the question about the editing, it's not. It's part of it is the time, but the biggest part about the editing is we don't do much editing, but you still have to render the video no matter what. Mm-hmm. You know, to upload it, and the rendering takes a lot of time, and my computer is garbage once I begin rendering, and it's a block of wood. I can't do anything else with it. So you know, in the near future, we're hoping to get. Like I just use a laptop. I don't even use a desktop. You know, and that's what I really need is to have a desktop that I could work from, and you know, or work from the laptop and have one of them doing one task while I do the other. Because you know, rendering a couple of hours of video takes hours. You know, it's like it's something I would normally do overnight, and then a lot of times like I'm working from I'll start in the morning anyways from like 8 to 10 in the morning, and I'm working till like I don't know, a lot of times midnight, you know, doing stuff. And at that point, I'm like, done. I don't like the little bit of stuff that I need to do to get set up a video to render. I'm like, no, not even. I'm closing this computer and it's done. You know, so that has been like the laptop cringes. Oh God, yeah. Like when I try and do a lot of stuff at once, like everything, my mouse starts ghosting around and.
Yeah. Totally.
So, like I said, you know, hopefully we got some things in the works, some big announcements, guys, that might change things a bit. But until those things happen, you know, we do the best we can with what we have, and that's what we've done for the past 4 years, and we've done okay.
Yeah, you guys have done great. So I love Saber Dice. I haven't caught up on. I think I'm still on the season that. Jim Davis was playing a barbarian.
Oh yeah, season 2.
Yeah, but I love it.
Season 2 is a little darker and grittier than I like for D&D nowadays.
Yeah.
Like maybe when I was Will's age, I would have been into that more.
Yeah.
And as I get older, I'm more like fantastical and whimsical. But I mean, Will is an awesome GM. He's really good at what he does. The first season, Jim Davis was really good, but I honestly, Cody has some serious chops when it comes to GMing. His voice work is really great. You know, his ability to do different voices and role play with himself when there's multiple NPCs is really good.
Yeah.
You know, so, and you know, everyone like that's DM so far for Saber Dice has brought different strengths to it.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's nothing for me to do here, guys. These guys got it covered. So
I love Jim Davis's season, and the reason that I'm really wanting to get through season 2 is I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but professional streamers ending the game how it did. I want to know how it got to that point, right?
We've had some interesting things happen, and it's weird. Like I know some people kind of get accused of not running real D&D games and plot armor and things like that. And I don't know. I don't really have an opinion one way or another. But like when I watch Critical Role, as far as I don't know that that it's so much that they have plot armor or anything like that. But when I watch their games, I go, this is real D&D.
Oh yeah,
because the way their sessions, I mean, they're better than a lot of other role players as far as because they're all voice actors and professionals,
right?
And they're more entertaining. But the way their game flows out is how a lot of the games at our tables do, without that skill level. So to me, I'm like, how can people say this isn't real D&D? Like, I don't know what you're playing, like, because there's definitely moments on there. Like if I was streaming, I would be trying to push things along and be like, all right, we've done enough of this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely at about hour 2 of a shopping episode on Critical Role and Travis Willingham is breaking his mechanical pencil. There's definitely a spot where you're like, this is, I mean, clearly they're just playing D&D and that's what they've got. And, they've got because of the way Matt runs his game, they've got all the time in the world to tell their story because they're not consistent on when they stop. So it's awesome. I love their show. It's my favorite show.
Oh, the Outcast game, Roger. I briefly ran a Underdark game, and it just kind of stopped, and like I just couldn't get the schedules to work with everyone. I was a little sad because it was a lot of fun. Like the characters had made some really cool. The players, I should say, made some really cool characters, and it was fun to run. It was kind of they were like kind of, I don't want to say anti-heroes, but they were like heroes in a really shitty place. So it's like Outcast is one of our Underdark cities where run by a clan of Dugar that were actually kicked out. Okay. They were banished, so they built their own place and they called it Outcast because they were outcasts. And the saying in that city is coin spends. So pretty much, if you have the money for it, you can find it. And we kind of made up like our own kind of warforged that were made out of like special material. Okay. And and so that they're like roaming around down there. It was a lot of fun to play though.
Yeah. So were the Dwargar, they kicked out because they had done good deeds or just really awful deeds?
That being said, we never touched on it.
Oh, really?
Okay. We never touched on it. So maybe that was something that might have came out had we ran there more. Mm-hmm. So our methodology of world building is kind of like it comes out in the game. Yeah. And, or in our videos. Right now, I believe there is more people running Nerdarchy content material in their games than we actually run. Makes me a little sad, that we don't get more of it in there. But then other times we'll like do this really cool stuff in a video, and then we're like, the other guys already know. So then you do something else. So, I don't know. Yeah, as they're pointing out in the chat, I am well over, and I do have another appointment after this. Okay. But I'm glad you came on, Shad. And hey, never feel like I'm just this guy. If you have something you want to talk about, just reach out to us.
Yeah,
we'll get
absolutely.
you on again. It was a lot of fun. We're just nerds. We like to talk about D&D.
Okay. Yeah, we're doing something new in the fall, so I'll probably reach out to you then, and we'll talk.
Awesome. Good luck with everything. Thanks for coming on, and thanks everyone for hanging out with us in the chat. Until next time, stay nerdy.
Thanks, guys.